How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. There's something absolutely nuts happening across the pond in Europe. They are talking about giving fees out to customers if they withdraw their money too quickly from the banks. I want to talk about that, talk about how all roads lead to Bitcoin, talk about some of the other crazy things happening in the market today. If you don't mind, hit subscribe, turn on that bell notification underneath the video. And I did just recently put on a trade. Again, I'm not saying that you should do this. This is something that's really risky, but leverage trading is a way to kind of work on your technical skills. I've been doing it over the last few days. I have another trade that is up 50%. And if you're in the Patreon, you can see all those trades. I'm not showing them here, but I have turned $80 into, was it $450 or something like that now? This is the third trade in a row that I've put on that has done well. I have a stop loss set up, so I'm not going to lose money. It's a fun thing to do. You can make some extra money. There's a link to Margex underneath the video. I don't believe you need any kind of VPN service for them. They don't have KYC. And I also have a link to BITGET. So if you're outside the country, you can definitely use that. It's probably an even better platform than Margex. But I went through a video yesterday on the Patreon on how I'm trading and stop losses, take profits, what kind of margin I'm using. Because Margex, you can actually use like USDT to trade in Bitcoin, and you can use USDC to trade in XRP. You can use any asset that you have in there to trade any asset, which is pretty cool. So you can check out those links underneath the video. I've been seeing some people putting on some big trades recently because we've been in such a pretty obvious bullish pattern here. So last night, I longed, not even at the exact bottom. I longed around, I think it was 34,400. Now we're at 34,750. And I went on 50x leverage, and I totally know that I could lose all of it. But again, it's for a couple different reasons, but it is an option for you. Now, 99.9% of my crypto is long-term in a spot account. And that's because of everything that's happening in the world. I talk about how all roads lead to Bitcoin. Everything that you see in the news makes you more bullish on Bitcoin, and that's just how it is. Now, the market is looking pretty good here today. Stocks are up. Crypto's up a little bit since this morning. And part of that is because of the jobs number. Carl Quintanilla, who is a longstanding TV personality in the finance world, says the jobs number likely will be revised down, continuing the pattern of downward revisions. The unemployment rate is on course to breach 4% mark soon. It's at 3.9 as of today. Wage growth is slowing, and 3% annualized increase in line with pre-pandemic pace. So basically, the market, I think, is looking bullish because we had lower jobs numbers. We saw lower hourly earnings continuously coming in. So it looks like the labor market's softening a bit. Inflation's coming down. The Fed is talking more dovish. So everything leads to the fact that they're going to probably stop raising rates and maybe even start lowering rates sometime soon. Now, some people are still having an issue from these increased rates. We've seen banks be one of the hardest hit, and I think one of the most dangerous places to invest, like smaller banks. I mean, we saw Credit Suisse fall earlier this year, and Switzerland's still worried about bank runs. Switzerland is possibly going to restrict bank withdrawals and impose exit fees on customers. So this is coming from Twitter. I want to get more information on it, so I went over to Reuters. They are mulling different ways to decrease the likelihood of bank runs. They're still worried about this. They said that this will most likely target their wealth clients. So the wealthiest people are not going to be happy with this. So there are a couple different things that they're talking about. Among the measures being discussed is the option to stagger a greater proportion of withdrawals over long periods of time, one source said. Imposing fees on exits is also an alternative being discussed. I mean, imagine that. Let's say you're some big company or you're worth a lot of money and you have $50 million. You take out $10 million a month, or you get a 10% fine. Imagine that. Imagine how many people would be pissed off if you go to the bank and you can't actually withdraw your own money. What if you want to go buy something with it? You're not even going to move banks. You just put it in there for saving purposes. Then you have to start staggering it out, either taking it in cash or putting it in other banks. That is absolutely nuts to think about. That's something that they're discussing. They're talking about rewarding clients who tie up their savings for longer with higher interest rates, which makes sense. And then also some of the sources are just saying this is early stages. So they haven't decided on what they're doing, but the stock is down today, down about 2% on this news. And this is specifically, let's see who they said, UBS that's down on this news. So absolutely nuts. But of course, if you have Bitcoin in cold storage, you can take it out whenever you want, and there's no third party. You have access to your Bitcoin at all times. And I think the fact that this is even being discussed has to make more companies consider putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet, if for nothing else, so that they can cover employees. If you remember that during the Silicon Valley Bank problem, one of the biggest issues was that even if the government stepped in, there are going to be companies that have missed payroll, and then people miss paying on their mortgages. They aren't able to buy bills. They go into credit card debt, or they're not able to buy groceries, and they go into credit card debt. So there's a spin-off effect, even just being a couple days late. So I can't believe that more companies don't have Bitcoin on their balance sheets, or I think at least a lot of companies are examining it, especially with the change in accounting rules here in the US. And we're seeing someone like Michael Saylor make so much money from it too. I think that's just going to be an obvious advertisement for more people to do the exact same thing. Also, it's not just banks that are having a hard time. Countries are having a hard time. People in countries are having a hard time. Argentina's had 100+% inflation. And now the two leading candidates are Bitcoin proponents. They're Bitcoin lovers. And I knew that Javier was, but I didn't realize that the other person still in the race also is kind of a fan of Bitcoin. He wants to mine Bitcoin with excess natural gas. Now, Javier says Bitcoin can eliminate the central bank. So I think Javier's maybe a little bit more bullish. He's a little bit more radical, as I understand. But keep in mind, this is just huge for their economy. And this month, we're going to have, I think it's about 2 weeks in the day, I believe, where they're going to have the next election. They're going to have the election that determines who wins this presidential candidacy. And yeah, it's going to be bullish for Bitcoin. It sounds like either way. It sounds like they're going to be pro-Bitcoin, and their country's so much bigger than El Salvador. If they really adopt Bitcoin like El Salvador did, that's going to cause a lot of people to want to buy Bitcoin. Now, there is some news. Apparently, the SEC is going to approve a spot Bitcoin application by the end of the month, says one of Valkyrie's top managers. Now, a couple of these accounts like Whale Chart, and there are a couple other accounts I think this person owns based on what they tweet about, have been saying that they're going to approve an ETF, that they're going to approve the next day or this week and stuff like that. I think they're basically farming for engagement a bit. I did like this so that I could come back to it though. Just keep in mind, we have no idea when the application is going to get approved, if it's going to be approved. I do think it's likely to get approved. So I would say that's another reason that we're going to have extra pressure on Bitcoin, extra buying pressure, not only countries adopting. Obviously, countries are going to adopt over time. It just takes a little bit of time. The first one happens, then the second one happens over a period of time that's pretty slow, and then the third one a little bit faster, and then I think a lot of countries will be holding Bitcoin on their balance sheets at one point or another. I think a lot of them actually already do. And then obviously, as the world gets crazier with more restrictions, people are going to want to buy Bitcoin as well. And there's less buying pressure. Matthew Schultz from CleanSpark says CleanSpark sold Bitcoin back in 2021 when the price was near all-time highs. We need that money, or we use that money to grow, to invest, to build one of the top, most efficient proprietary mining fleets exceeding 88,000 plugged-in rigs. And keep in mind, a rig is like 20 pounds. The one that I have is like 20 pounds. So they have a massive amount of these. Now they've hit extreme amounts of hash power. And now they're not selling. They're one of the bigger miners out there, and they're not selling. They're holding. They've gone from a few hundred Bitcoin to now over 2,300 Bitcoin. With $78 million worth of Bitcoin added to their balance sheet. That is Bitcoin that they are not selling. That could have been on the open market, but now some Bitcoin mining companies are starting to hold. And we also have the Bitcoin halving coming up soon. So there's going to be less selling pressure compared to the overall supply. So all this is happening. I think it's really bullish for Bitcoin. Of course, do your own research. I'm not telling you what to buy or sell. And you have to be comfortable with your investment. But I just wanted to cover some of this stuff because some of it's just absolutely nuts that it's coming out that banks are talking about giving fees for withdrawing your own money. Now, let me know your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Check out the links underneath the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.